America built some of the most devastating bombers of World War II, but not every design lived up to the legend. From aircraft that never overcame their flaws to machines that reshaped the war itself, here are all 20 American bombers of World War II, ranked from worst to best. Number 20. The Douglas TBD Devastator. Entering service in 1937, this Navy torpedo bomber was already outdated by 1942. At the Battle of Midway that June, 35 of 41 launch were shot down, scoring 0 hits. Slow, poorly armed, and unescorted, it was withdrawn from frontline duty immediately after. Only 130 were ever built. Number 19. The Douglas B-18 Bolo. This was the Army Air Corps primary bomber through the late 1930s, but by December 1941, it was already obsolete. Thin armor and weak defensive guns left it vulnerable, and several were destroyed on the ground at Pearl Harbor and in the Philippines. Reduced to patrol and training duty, 350 were built. Number 18. The Douglas B-23 Dragon. Developed from the B-18 with improved speed and defense, the Dragon arrived just as newer designs made it redundant. It never flew a single bombing combat mission, instead serving only as a trainer and transport. Just 38 were built before the program was quietly abandoned. Number 17. The Consolidated B-32 Dominator. Built as a fallback in case the B-29 program failed, the Dominator didn't reach combat until mid-1945. It flew the last Allied combat sorties of the entire war, but had almost no strategic impact. Only around 118 were built before production was canceled. Number 16. The Curtiss SBD Helldiver. Entering combat in November 1943, this dive bomber was meant to replace the beloved SBD Dauntless. Poor handling and stability problems earned it a notoriously unflattering nickname among Navy pilots. Despite this, it matured into the fleet's main dive bomber and helped sink the battleship Yamato in 1945. Over 7,140 were built. Number 15. The Lockheed B-34 Lexington. This was the Army Air Force's land-based version of the Navy's PV-1 patrol bomber, used mainly for coastal patrol and crew training rather than frontline strikes. Its combat exposure was limited, and its impact on the war modest. Production numbers stayed small, and it was phased out well before the war ended. Number 14. The Lockheed PV-1 Ventura. Entering service in 1942 as a patrol bomber for anti-submarine duty over the Atlantic and Pacific, the Ventura was fast for its size but carried mediocre defensive armament. Early losses over occupied Europe were notable. Around 1,600 were built, and it was retired from American service by roughly 1946. Number 13. The Lockheed PV-2 Harpoon. An improved, longer-wing development of the Ventura with better range and payload, the Harpoon entered service in 1944, arriving too late to make a major mark on the war. It proved a strong anti-submarine patrol aircraft in the Pacific's final year. Around 535 were built. Number 12. The North American A-36 Apache. A dive bomber variant of the P-51 Mustang, the Apache entered service in 1942 and flew over North Africa, Sicily, Italy, and Burma. Fast and accurate in the dive, it nonetheless suffered the worst accident rate of any Army Air Force's type. Only 500 were built before it was withdrawn by 1944. Number 11. The Consolidated PBY-2 Privateer. A stretched, single-tailed derivative of the B-24, the privateer entered service in 1944 for long-range maritime patrol and anti-shipping strikes. It was effective in its role but arrived late, with a narrow window of wartime use. 739 were built, and it stayed in Navy service until 1954. Number 10. The Douglas A-20 Havoc. Flying with French and British forces before America even entered the war, then with the Army Air Forces from 1942 onward, the Havoc was a fast, versatile light bomber used for low-level strafing and bombing in every theater. Nearly 7,478 were built before it was phased out by 1945. Number 9. The Martin B-26 Marauder. Entering combat in early 1942, the Marauder earned a brutal early reputation for accidents and the nickname Widowmaker. Once crews adapted, it became one of the lowest loss-rate bombers in the 9th Air Force, excelling at tactical strikes on bridges and rail yards. 5,288 were built, retired in 1947. Number 8. The Consolidated PBY Catalina. In service since 1936, this patrol bomber and flying boat spotted the German battleship Bismarck in 1941, sank U-boats, and flew countless air-sea rescues across every ocean theater. Slow but famously long-ranged and dependable, around 3,300 were built. It remained in Navy service until 1957. Number 7. The Douglas A-26 Invader. Arriving late with its combat debut in November 1944, the Invader saw limited action in World War II itself, but its refined laminar flow wing design made it arguably the finest attack bomber of the war. Over 2,500 were built, and it went on to serve through Korea and Vietnam, retiring in 1969. Number 6. The North American B-25 Mitchell. First flown in 1940, and in service by February 1941, the Mitchell was immortalized by the Doolittle raid on Tokyo in April 1942. Rugged and adaptable, it fought in every theater of the war as a dependable medium bomber. Nearly 9,890 were built, remaining in U.S. service until 1959. Number 5. The Grumman TBF and TBM Avenger. This torpedo bomber debuted disastrously at Midway, losing 5 of 6 aircraft, but matured into the Navy's premier strike aircraft, helping sink the battleship Yamato in April 1945. Rugged and versatile, nearly 9,836 were built, and it remained in Navy service until 1954. Number 4. The Douglas SBD Dauntless. Entering frontline service in 1940, the slow but deadly dive bomber sank 4 Japanese carriers in just 5 minutes at the Battle of Midway in June 1942, turning the tide of the Pacific War. It held a rare positive air-to-air kill ratio of 3.2 to 1. Nearly 5,936 were built, retiring from frontline duty by mid-1944. Number 3. The Consolidated B-24 Liberator. The most produced American military aircraft in history at 18,482 built. The Liberator entered combat in 1942 with longer range than the B-17. It devastated the Ploesti oil refineries in 1943, and alongside the PB-4Y, helped sink over 93 U-boats. Its sortie loss rate sat near 1.26%, and it was phased out shortly after the war. Number 2. The Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress. First flown in 1935 and in combat by 1942, the Flying Fortress became the defining symbol of the daylight bombing campaign over Germany. Famously rugged, it dropped 640,000 tons of bombs during the war, with a sortie loss rate of roughly 1.66%. 12,731 were built, and it remained in U.S. service into the late 1950s. Number 1. The Boeing B-29 Superfortress. Entering combat in mid-1944, this pressurized, remotely turreted bomber outclassed every rival in range, altitude, and payload. It ended the war outright, dropping atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945. 3,970 were built, and it remained in U.S. Air Force service until 1960.